Dirtle Magic! Hello and welcome back. You can follow our post on Twitter and Facebook at DirtleMTG to stay up to date on our latest videos and other posts, and you can join a more robust discussion about casual Commander at our blog, TheDiceBag.blog. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this content to help the channel and the blog grow. Another way you can support the channel, though, is through our affiliate links in the description below. If you're looking for single sealed product or gaming accessories to protect all of that glory, please consider clicking the links in the description. Now, grab some spells, it's time to dirtle. Hello. Today I revisit Project Mangara, which periodically explores how Mono White is coming along in Commander. Today our opponents are Iname Death Aspect, Atraxa, and Mila and Lukka. I mulligan down to 6, and the Mila player wins the die roll. They play a mountain and cast Wayfarer's Bauble. I drop a Plains on my turn and cast Esper Sentinel. Iname plays a swamp. They then cast Genju of the Fields, and Esper Sentinel triggers. The Iname player enchants their land, and they pass. Atraxa plays an Arctic Treeline. Mila has a Plains into play, and then they crack the Bauble for another Plains. My turn gives me a Sphere of Safety. I play Emeria the Sky Ruin. I go to combat and swing the Sentinel into Iname, dealing 1. To Iname's turn, and a swamp enters the battlefield. Contaminated Ground gets cast, and Mila's Mountain gets enchanted. Atraxa visits a Temple of Enlightenment and scries 1. Birds of Paradise then hits the field, slightly ramping the player. Mila's turn sees them visit a Temple of Triumph, and they scry 1. Mila, Crafty Companion, then enters the battlefield. Swiftfoot Boots are obtained on my turn. I play a Plains and I cast them. I equip them to the Sentinel, and move to attacks. I swing into the Atraxa player, seeing if they want to block with the birds. They do not, and they take 1. Iname's turn sees a Pale Rider of Trostad into play, and they have to discard a card. Unfortunately, they do not play land on their turn. Atraxa's turn sees a Snow-Covered Island into play. They then cast their commander, who speaks for the Phyrexian Creators. Moving to Mila, another Plains comes into play. They lose another 2 life off the Contaminated Ground and cast Cleansing Nova. Esper Sentinel triggers, giving me an Angel of Serenity, which I think is rather fitting of the circumstances. The board gets wiped. I get a Plains on my turn and play it. I then cast my glorious commander, Mangara the Diplomat. I pass my turn. Iname's turn sees a Howltooth Hollow, and I have to check and see what it is because it has Hideaway. The condition to use it seems a bit too hard to pull off though, which is probably why I don't remember it. They hide away a card from the top 4. They then cast Forever Young and return all their creatures from the graveyard to the top of their deck, and draw a card. Atraxa's turn has a Soul Ring come into play, and they pass. Over to Mila, and a Mountain comes into play. They lose another 2 life from the Enchanted Mountain, and cast Sunburn's Invocation. Atraxa responds with Saw It Coming from exile because it was foretold, and the spell is countered. To my turn, and I receive an Austere command. I cast Endless Atlas for some extra card draw, and then cast Bounty Agent. To combat, I swing Mangara at the Iname player, dealing 2 commander damage, and gaining 2 life. Iname's turn sees them cast Waking Nightmare on me, and I have to discard 2 cards. I select Sphere of Safety and the Austere command. They pass with no land drop. Atraxa's turn has them casting Swords to Plowshares on Mangara, and he returns to the command zone, with me gaining 2 life. Mila's turn begins and ends with Assemble the Legion, which definitely needs to be destroyed. On my turn, I gain a Bonder Enclave, which I really need to change to War Room, totally forgot to switch. I immediately cast Righteous Confluence, exiling the Assemble the Legion and getting 2 2/2 Vigilant Knight tokens. In combat, I swing the Bounty Agent into the Atraxa player, dealing 2, and I pass. Pale Rider of Trostad is recast on Iname's turn, and they discard another card, which happens to be Infernal Kirin. Atraxa's turn has a Temple of Deceit hit the field, and they scry 1. Oath of Teferi is then cast, and I suppose the deck might be a Super Friends one. It triggers when it comes into play, and they exile the Temple of Deceit. At the end of the turn, the Oath triggers to bring it back, and the Atraxa player again scries 1. A Plains comes into play for the Mila player, and they lose 2 more life by tapping that mountain, and cast Avacyn, Angel of Hope. My turn brings me Savine's Reclamation. I activate the Endless Atlas, and draw Call of the Coppercoats. I then cast Hilliard's Intervention where X equals 1, and destroy the Oath of Teferi. In combat, I swing the Bounty Agent and both Knights into the Atraxa player, dealing 6 and bringing them down to 31. Iname's turn begins with Genju of the Fens being activated to animate their land. They move to combat and swing the Genju into Atraxa, and the Rider into Mila, dealing 2 and 3 respectively, and bringing both down to 29. Atraxa sees a command tower into play on their turn. They then cast Liliana, Dreadhorde General. They activate the -4, and each player sacrifices 2 creatures. I sack my 2 Night tokens, and Avacyn notably goes away. Moving to Mila's turn, they cast the Lukka side of the card, losing 2 life from the contamination. They then activate his -2, returning a creature from the graveyard to the battlefield with haste, which happens to be Avacyn. Going to combat, they swing the Angel into Liliana, and the Planeswalker goes down. In the second main phase, they cast the On Flavor Cloud Shift, blinking Avacyn so she stays on the battlefield as a new object. I get a Plains on my turn, and play it. I activate the Atlas to draw a card, and it's another Plains. I equip the boots to the Bounty Agent, and then cast Divine's Reclamation to return the Esper Sentinel to the battlefield. Going to combat, I swing the Agent into the Iname player, dealing 2. To Iname's turn, and they cast Sickening Shoal, weakening the Sentinel to death, and I do get to draw a card, and I get Archon of Absolution. Atraxa's turn has their commander return to the battlefield, and they pass. Mila's turn begins with Lukka trying to exile Avacyn, but that particular object isn't there anymore to be exiled. Lukka's +1 is activated, and they discard Angel of Jubilation and draw 2 cards. Rhea Dawnbringer hits the stack, and they move to combat. Avacyn swings into me, and I take 8, going down to 36. Rolling to me, I gain a Sword of Hearth and Home. I play Plains, and then cast the Angel of Serenity. With its ETB, I select Avacyn, Rhea, and the Sentinel from the graveyard. They become exiled as long as I control the Angel. I move to attacks and swing into the Lukka Planeswalker, and knock it down to 2 loyalty to keep it from sneak attacking from the graveyard. It rolls to Iname's turn, and they're still at 3 lands. They cast a Pestilent Spirit and pass. To the Atraxa player's turn, and they cast Trellisera, Moondancer. They then cast Yahenni. In response, I sacrifice my Bounty Agent to nuke Atraxa. Yahenni comes into play, and they pass. Mila's turn has Lukka activating the +1 again, and they discard Gisela, Blade of Gold Knight. That seems to be troublesome if they're able to reanimate it. They cast a Soul Ring, and then a pair of Lightning Greaves. Vesuva enters the battlefield, and becomes a copy of my Emeria, the Sky Ruin. My turn heralds the arrival of my Angel of the Dire Hour. I cast the Sword of Hearth and Home, and then equip it to the Angel of Serenity. I also equip the boots to it, or at least attempt to, but she gets rifted away, releasing Avacyn and Rhea, and the Sentinel returns to my hand. With my remaining mana source, I cast the Sentinel and pass. Iname's turn has them go straight to combat. They swing into me, and I don't block and can't block, and I take 3, going down to 33. Atraxa's turn sees them cast Binding of the Old Gods. I draw a Generous Gift off the Sentinel trigger though. When the Saga enters, they blow up my Swiftfoot boots. Amanatu the Fate Shifter is then cast, and they blink the Saga to have it come back and destroy the Milo player's Lightning Greaves. They pass the turn, and I really wish there was a dedicated Saga-centric commander. To Milo's turn, and they activate Lukka's +1, discarding their Rhea Dawnbringer. They then recast Avacyn. My turn reveals a Plains, and I play it. I cast the Archon of Absolution to stave off Avacyn, then I equip the sword to the Sentinel. I move to combat, and swing the Sentinel into the Milo player. Damage is good, dropping them to 22. I choose not to blink anything, but I do get a Plains from my deck into play untapped. I pass with some mana up for Generous Gift, just in case. Iname's turn has them going straight to attacks again, with them swinging into the Atraxa player, who takes 3. To Atraxa's turn, and the Saga triggers, getting them a Forest card to the battlefield tapped. Amanatu is activated to blink Yahenni, Sweet Gum Recluse is then cast, and the blink makes more sense at this point. They cascade into Gaia's Blessing, and return the Rift, Oath, and Swords to the deck. I get to draw 8.5 tails. Sweet Gum Recluse enters the battlefield, and it and Yahenni both get 3 1/1 counters. To combat, and Yahenni swings into the Iname player, dealing 5 and knocking them down to 30. To Milo's turn, and their Sky Ruin triggers. They bring back the Angel of Jubilation. Lukka's +1 is activated again, and they discard a Star Compass, drawing only 1 card this time. They cast Itali Primal Storm. To combat, the Avacyn player is assigned to swing into Amanatu, and she goes down to the Angel. At the end of the turn, I draw a card with the Atlas. It's a Plains. To my turn proper, and the Sky Ruin on my side gets triggered, and I return the Bounty Agent to play. Lightning Greaves is my card for the turn, and I cast the Angel of Serenity. With its ETB, I exile all of Milo's creatures. I move to combat, and Milo casts a Path to Exile on my Angel. Sentinel triggers, and I respond by casting Generous Gift on my own Angel. She dies, and Yahenni gains a counter, and I gain an Elephant token. I don't draw a card off the Sentinel because they pay the tax, and the path itself fizzles. Moving to combat, I swing the Sentinel at the Milo player and it connects. They go down to 19, and I blink nothing while gaining another Plains. Iname's turn as another land come into play, and I decide to keep a watchful eye out for Living Death or Patriarch's Bidding because of their commander. They cast Kamuri Una, and when it enters, they have me discard a card, and I choose to discard 8.5 tails. To Atraxa's turn, and their Saga triggers to give their creatures Death Touch until the end of their turn. They recast their commander, and go to attacks. All creatures they have that can attack do so, and they all swing into the Mila player. Damage is good, and Mila goes down to 8. At the end of the turn, Atraxa finally has something to proliferate, and does so with Yahenni and the Sweetgum Recluse. To Mila, and the Skyruin triggers for them, returning the mighty Gisela Blade of Gold Knight. Lukka's +1 is activated, and they discard Avacyn. They then cast Chaos Wand, which I have mixed feelings about. Usually when I see it, I'm usually the target. They activate it, and lo and behold I am the target, and I reveal cards until I hit Idyllic Tutor. They cast it, and retrieve a Warstorm Surge from their deck. They tap some mana, lose 2 life, and cast the Surge. They then surrender for reasons unknown. Back to me, and my Emeria triggers, and I revive the Angel of Serenity. It comes into play, and I exile Yahenni, Atraxa, and the Pestilence Spirit. I draw Tectonic Edge on my turn, and move to attacks on accident, having wanted to cast the Greaves first. I swing the Agent, Elephant Token, and Sentinel into the Atraxa player, and damage is good. They go down to 18, and I again decide not to blink anything with the Sword trigger, and grab another Plains. In the second main, I play my Tech Edge, and cast the Greaves. I equip them to the Angel of Serenity. I activate the Atlas, and receive a Welcoming Vampire, a new card I'm currently testing out, but I am unsure of, and pass. To Iname's turn, and Dark Ritual is cast. I get to draw a new card from the Sentinel, which is Windborn Muse. The Iname player then casts their commander, Iname Death Aspect. It comes into play and triggers, letting that player search their deck for any number of spirit cards and put them into the graveyard. I decide then and there they probably need to die on the next turn in case they have a living end in hand. Atraxa's turn rolls around. They begin it with casting Mu Yanling, Skydancer, and I draw a Path to Exile. After it comes into play, they activate her +2, and my Archon gets a -2/-0 nerf to its power, hampering my planned attack against the Iname player. They then cast Hero's Downfall on my poor Sentinel, who is probably suffering from its repeated death experiences. In response, I cast a Striven called the Coppercoats to try and preserve some of my offensive power for the coming turn. I gain 3 human soldier creature tokens, and the Sentinel dies again, the hero of this game. At the end of the turn, I cast Path to Exile on Iname itself, and it hits the command zone while letting the Iname player get a swamp. My turn starts with recurring my abused Sentinel back to the battlefield. I draw a Cavalier of Dawn and play a Plains. I then cast the Cavalier, and when it enters, I blow up Mu Yanling. This both keeps them from nerfing my creatures again, and the Cavalier is decently large creature in its own right for the coming attack. The Atraxa player receives a 3/3 golem token for the trouble. I switch the Lightning Greaves over to the Cavalier, and then equip the Sword of Hearth and Home to the Angel of Serenity. Moving to combat, I swing with everything available, excluding the Elephant token, into the Iname player. I then cast a Chroma's Will, giving my creatures flying, double strike, and mess up the timing for the Vigilance. First strike damage happens, and I grab a Plains and blink my Archon. Regular combat damage happens, and I only grab a Plains, and the Iname player goes down. In the second main, I move the Greaves back to the Angel, and put the Sword onto the Sentinel. I pass the turn, and the Atraxa player surrenders. Good game to our opponents. With Kamigawa Neon Dynasty around the corner at the time of the recording, I've been thrilled to see some of the old legends on games recently. Unfortunately for the Iname player, they couldn't seem to get a land to play for turns on end, although I am very happy they stuck around until the end of the game. I'll see you next time for some more casual Commander gameplay. Until then, stay safe out there.